and gentlemen.
Welcome to the show. It's Movie Wire time. Oh, the Movie Wire. Bring the firing squad. Bill, Justin. Give the finger or laugh or smile. It's time to find out. No more waiting. So here we go. The Sultan of Cinema. The gumshoe of review. Here is Justin Henson. Let's start the show. Let's go.
Welcome to the Movie Wire.
And welcome to this week's edition of the Movie Wire. I'm your host, Justin Henson, and welcome to the show. We've got a big show this week with 3 new movies to review, with all 3 playing in theaters right now. This week on the show, First Hunt, Last Chance, and Predator Badlands, which you can also listen to Back to the Balcony as they take over the Talking Smac Podcast to discuss Badlands as well. That episode is live right now. Be afraid, be very afraid, because he's frighteningly friendly in the animated feature, Stitchhead. And finally, a World War II psychiatrist evaluates Nazi leaders before the Nuremberg trials. Russell Crowe and Rami Malek star in Nuremberg. We've got a big show this week, so let's jump right in. Ready for my verdict? Let's get into it.
Out of the windows, watch a roar and a burst of flame. The Movie Wire Podcast. You need people like me.
The Wire.
And here we go.
A young predator outcast from his clan finds an unlikely ally on his journey in search of the ultimate adversary in Predator Badlands.
So this is your first hunt. And you've come to the most dangerous planet in the universe. You're after a creature that can't be killed. The definitive apex predator. I could help you. Well, good luck with your journey. Here, you're not the predator. You're the prey. We might not be alone in this hunt.
Now, just stating up front, this is a Predator movie that I applaud studios for taking a chance on. The first PG-13 Predator movie that is now what I consider the first family-friendly Predator movie. Well, at least for the ages of 13 and over. That acts as more of an adventure movie than it does its predecessors. Not many sequels, reboots, etc., will take it down a notch to its fan base, but rather make it a generic sequel that doesn't make sense. Overload the gore, make it forgettable when it comes to storyline. Here are writers Patrick Asen and Dan Trachtenberg take it in another direction to not only appease fans, but generate a younger fan base, to entice them to watch the originals as they grow, which sounds kinda weird when it comes to a 38-year-old franchise that has been focused on a rated R strategy around a creature that just kills with little to no knowledge of its background. but a mere focus of hunting as its mere intent, until the more recent sequels that have left small breadcrumbs for our predator's background. This one doesn't burst the book wide open, but rather takes us sideways into another realm of where studios can take this franchise, to leave more breadcrumbs into a wider scope of our Predator lore. Now, this is a Predator movie that I didn't expect. First for the PG-13 rating, and next for the amount of humor it inserts. This follows a road trip movie and follows the formula to adding emotional elements, friendship, and humor, with situational elements, but in this form, we get killer trees, exploding bugs, and a marketable, cute alien monkey. Walking out of Badlands, I wasn't sure how I felt about it at first, because on one hand, it didn't feel like a normal Predator movie, but on the other hand, it felt fresh enough to be pure entertainment. And at the end of the day, it delivered the goods. It's a fun, entertaining movie with just enough lore to appease Predator fans. It may not be the movie that fans were looking for, but it works, as not following the same routines as the other films. Predator Badlands was directed by Dan Trachtenberg, who recently directed 2022's Prey and Predator Killer of Killers, that appeared on Hulu on June 6th this year, that told separate stories through time of our Predator's hunts in an animated fashion. We can tell that Trachtenberg wants original stories that tells a bigger lore, a bigger story to focal point characters, other than using our alien as just a vehicle to show cool kill scenes. And with Trachtenberg presenting us to this version, amplifies his intent of opening up a world and introducing us to the bigger picture. In Badlands, we have our young Predator Dek, played by Demetrius Schuster-Kilo-Amatanji, who escapes execution from his clan for being the weakest, and he escapes to go on a hunt to find the unkillable beast, the Callus, by trying to kill the Callus to prove that he deserves to be part of the clan, that he is brave, that he is strong, and to avenge a death that I will leave out of this review. As Dek lands on this death planet, he meets an android, Thea, played by Elle Fanning. Thea convinces Dek to take her on the hunt to help Dek find the Callus. This is where the road trip, if you will, begins. Now, the pivotal moment, we can see that Trachtenberg wants this to be something different and almost meaningful, to give us a different perspective other than just a killing machine. We have a scene where Thea tells Dek about wolves, one of nature's most intelligent predators, and the nature of being a pack, where wolves kill to survive and the pack is led by an alpha, whose sole purpose is to protect the pack. Now, the term predator is used in many contexts, but holistically in terms of nature, it's about survival. And Trachtenberg leans into this to turn the corner of perspective of how we view our Dek character. Even having our Dek character's looks and body language something new we haven't seen from the design before, where Dek looks monstrous, but also in terms of how it interacts and gives direct looks. It feels different, feels subtly empathetic, but still a moving threat that one can even compare to a wolf. Beautiful animals, but deadly. Here, the design always feels threatening, but there's a lighter feel to support what Trachtenberg is aiming for. Between the last three Predator films, each one shares its own unique tone, from the heavy grays and Prey to the animation and Killer of Killers, to here, where the tone matches more to the adventure tone. And we see that running through the movie, and it sets a tone early with brilliant cinematography from Jeff Cutter that I complimented in 2022 for Prey. Cutter and Trachtenberg work in unison here to create a tone that just doesn't separate the Predator beyond their films, but they make each of their films feel like it isn't there. They feel completely different in style, by having each one stand on its own in a unique feel of storytelling. Now, as we get into the second half of Predator Badlands, we do have a feeling of change, where at times it does feel a little cliche and familiar in formula that we see from an adventure movie or buddy road trip movie, where it attempts to land a moral lesson of friendship or family to an ending that seems way too familiar from movies past. But it doesn't derail the movie. It's a significant change from what we've got in the first half of the movie, and Trachtenberg, I can feel, knows this. And this is where it feels rushed to not spend too much time in familiar territory to ruin what we had in the first half of the movie, along with some of the humor that can seem a little much, especially with our characters being on a planet of death, given that we do have a robot, we have an animal, and we have one that grew up in a culture of bravery and discipline. But as we see our Dek character develop to have some emotion to the other characters on a subtle level, we almost see more vulnerability to fear. We needed a bigger arc from this character, to again leave us with some breadcrumbs to the emotional level of this culture. This would have been the perfect vehicle with Trachtenberg's vision to insert a little bit more of this. Predator Badlands is a refreshing addition to the lore, where Trachtenberg continues to take us on a journey of the culture of our aliens without showing us all his cards, but leaves a little to the imagination, where we don't quite feel exhausted from watching another Predator movie. I don't know if it was a smart move to make a Predator film PG-13, but it's definitely an entertaining movie and a fantastic addition. I'm giving Predator Badlands 3 stars.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
Now, before we get into the rest of the show, make sure you check out my reviews for movies that just became available to rent, buy, or stream now.
Now available on video cassette.
Need a miracle? You got it when Keanu Reeves plays an angel. And he is adorable. A Good Fortune that received 3 stars. He robbed 45 McDonald's, escaped from prison, lived in a Toys R Us for 6 months. And that's not even the craziest part. The craziest part is that we can tell that Channing Tatum wasn't a Toys R Us kid in Roofman that received 1.5 stars. That is just a word. We told you not to talk to strangers in the Black Phone 2. That for an unnecessary sequel, this one actually got it right, receiving 3 stars. The unforgettable true story of UFC legend Wayne Johnson stars in The Smashing Machine, which couldn't find its way to 3 stars, receiving 2.5 stars. Who's a good movie? Who's a good movie? And Good Boy, which had a good job, good premise, good filmmaking to receive 3 stars. The task is simple: walk or die in the Stephen King adaptation of The Long Walk. That was pretty thrilling for a movie about walking, receiving 3 stars. All's fair when love is war in The Roses, which, call me a romantic, but nothing makes me appreciate relationships more than watching other relationships fight, receiving 3.5 stars. Who can you trust when everyone is a stranger? You know, my parents told me never to talk to strangers, but they should have told me not to watch strangers to prepare me for this movie that received 0.5 star. It was supposed to be fun, but then 2 pregnant women later in the threesome. And surprise, it's getting threesome stars. I mean 3 stars. Friday's about to get freaky again in Freakier Friday. And the threesome was freakier. Freakier Friday received 1.5 stars. The case that ended it all in The Conjuring Last Rites, which this is the Avengers Endgame for Conjuring fans that satisfies, receiving 3 stars. Greatness demands sacrifice in him, which that must mean everybody that went to see him shines greatness for sacrificing their time for one of the worst movies of the year, receiving 0.5 star. Prepare for launch and welcome to the family in the Fantastic Four that, even with flaws, was a visual spectacle that didn't just focus on our characters looking cool, but the movie in its entirety, receiving 3 stars. No callers are identified, no conversations are recorded, no phone records are kept. Now speak clearly, and when you are finished, say, go ahead. In Relay, that in my review I relay 2 stars. Go ahead. Welcome to the New West in Americana that received 2 stars. 3 stars on Sydney Sweeney's Games. Last night at 2:17 a.m., every child from Mrs. Grady's class woke up, got out of bed, went downstairs, opened the front door, walked into the dark, and never came back. One of the best horror movies of the year in Weapons that received 3.5 stars. The Truth is Messy Business in Ethan Cohen's Honey Don't that had a great premise and an idea of tone, but made me say by the end, Ethan Cohen, please honey don't, receiving 2.5 stars. Justice Makes Him Wet in the remake to the Leslie Nielsen classic The Naked Gun, which rapid fires gigs with only a 50% success, receiving 2.5 stars. Hutch is back and nobody ruins his vacation in Nobody 2, which is an unnecessary sequel, but still a lot of fun seeing 2 unexpected action stars like Christopher Lloyd fire a machine gun, and Bob Odenkirk kick some ass, receiving 3 stars. Karma is a killer, and I know what you did last summer. Overacted, recycled, and brings nothing new to the table except 1.5 stars. Love is hard, and breakups are harder, especially when an unnatural force has a plan to keep them together. In Together, which will make your date stop holding your hand in the movie, but worth it, receiving 3 stars. Brad Pitt goes vroom vroom in F1 the movie. That was an adrenaline ride, especially given the runtime, and is a feast for the senses, receiving 3.5 stars. And finally, double the bad and double the fun. I I don't know about that one. And The Bad Guys 2, which was just too much to receive 2.5 stars. Now, before we get into the last set of reviews, there is a podcast that is my go-to each and every week. That's with my friend Dan over at the Gaming Views Podcast. Make sure to check out Dan from head to toe, and then check out his podcast. The link to that show will be in the description of this episode. But let's hear from Dan over the Gaming Views Podcast now.
Welcome to the trailer for Gaming Views. Think of it as the demo level before the real action kicks off.
We're Dan, and every week we're bringing hot takes, breaking news, deep dives, and everything gaming related.
From the biggest headlines to retro classics, hardware breakdowns, and inside scoops on developers, we cover it all.
So level up your gaming knowledge, subscribe to Gaming Views wherever you get your podcasts, and don't miss out.
A World War II psychiatrist evaluates Nazi leaders before the Nuremberg trials, growing increasingly obsessed with understanding evil as he forms a disturbing bond with a Nazi leader in Nuremberg.
Justice Jackson? They captured Hermann Göring alive. What are they going to do with him?
You are standing inside a secret military prison. It houses what's left of the Nazi high command.
Hey! Never do that in my prison again.
The governments of Russia, France, Great Britain, and our United States will put these men on trial for their lives.
It can't be done. There's no international law to base charges on.
The world needs to know what these men did.
Dr. Kelly, Central Command thinks you're some kind of hotshot head shrinker. You will inspect and ensure the prisoner's mental health. The one you'll have to watch the closest is Göring.
He was appointed Hitler's successor in 1939 and is the highest-ranking German military officer of all time.
He's highly intelligent,
charming, and a narcissist.
I am going to escape the hangman's noose.
Very sure of yourself.
No man has ever beaten me.
You want to know why it happened here? Because people let it happen.
Anything less than total victory will be considered utter defeat. You have to be flawless.
I'm going to put Hermann Göring on the stand, and I'm going to make him tell the world what he did.
Are you going to defend yourself?
What would you have me say?
How about the truth for once?
I am a prisoner because you won and we lost.
Not because you're morally superior.
I know more about this man than anyone else on the planet. You're walking into a trap.
We are able to do away with domestic tyranny only when we make all men answerable to the law, so that it can never happen again.
James Vanderbilt's Nuremberg dives right into one of the heaviest times of pain and horror in modern history, the famous post-World War trials where Nazi leaders face judgment for their crimes. This is a serious topic, this is a heavy topic, a dark time for our world, but the film manages to make it gripping and surprisingly personal when it comes to the human element. Starring Russell Crowe as Hermann Göring and Rami Malek as U.S. Army psychiatrist Douglas Kelly. Now, this is a hard movie to watch, but not meaning it's bad, but any movie about the Holocaust is a hard watch for me. But Nuremberg hits a level of that feeling of being uncomfortably sad, and it's not done so through visuals or concentration camps' horrific visuals, but rather attempting to bring a human element in Nazi leaders. And that's something a lot of audience may not be ready for. Hollywood has always given what the audience wanted when it comes to covering the topic of the Holocaust, by giving us one-dimensional views of Nazis as either villains in movies, such as the Indiana Jones films, or giving them lines of dialogue that makes them hate them even more and root for a bad outcome. And rightfully so. There's nothing better than seeing karma and revenge happen to a Nazi in a movie. It's crowd-pleasing and gives us a good feeling. Well, as good as we can get when it comes to seeing Nazis on screen that just screams pure evil. Here is something that James Vanderbilt delivers that makes us squirm in our seats and question how we should be feeling. Nuremberg, of course, was written and directed by James Vanderbilt with a writing credit for Jack L. High as well. Now, visually, Nuremberg looks fantastic. The matte colors, the grays, and darks through the courtroom. and the gray military uniforms all give the movie a straight, non-biased look, where we don't have the filmmaker trying to manipulate how we look towards the characters. You can sense the weight of history in every single frame here, just with a little lackluster editing that I'll get into in just a second. Direction is straightforward, no flashy camera work or over-the-top editing. It's just steady and it respects the characters on screen. It looks at a world trying to rebuild itself after a catastrophic event. It's controlled to tell the story of 2 points of view of history. And this is where the challenging piece is for Vanderbilt is, do we want to hear the other side of history? Do we want to hear the Nazis' story? Do we want to hear the Nazis' point of view? The automatic response to any viewer is fuck no. But Vanderbilt goes all in on this to see both sides of history, both sides of human nature when it comes to conversation. The first hour or so is intense, but it begs the question, is it the mere idea of the topic, or is it going to be the outcome that makes it tense? Or is it the setup, the legal preparation, the moral questions? This all in unison makes it all intense. If you go into Nuremberg not knowing the story, then the stakes for you is higher, and the performances will be valued much greater. The movie challenges 2 points of view of whether humanity can actually hold monsters accountable through law instead of vengeance, or after knowing the horror and evil Nazi leaders and soldiers cause, can, on a human level, be persuaded to listen to the points of view of pure evil. Vanderbilt and Jack L. High's writing at times sucks us into our second in charge of the Nazi Party, Hermann Göring, again here played brilliantly by Russell Crowe, who we can tell based on what history has shown us and what the movie has demonstrated is that he is a master manipulator and a narcissist, because as we see him tell the story of his past, along with seeing other Nazi leaders beg for their life, this is where Vanderbilt puts out the moral question to the audience, and we can almost hear Vanderbilt whisper to us, "Now how do you feel?" As a human, visually seeing another human in his last moments, even with Nazis, it's a hard thing to watch, and that's the truth of it. But then we are reminded how many of these horrible men took lives and how many deaths they've actually seen without remorse. What Vanderbilt does is really take Crowe's character, and again, a great performance from Crowe. You can feel him manipulating us in his story, which at the end of the day, the end of the movie, we have to decide, are we persuaded or are we stated with facts to find these people pure evil? And as humans and the cause and effect of what happened in the Holocaust, there is no way to not see these people as evil. But what this movie did do, it made me stop for half a second as questions race through my mind of morality, and those feelings are matched with validation because we have our psychologist Douglas Kelly, again here played by Rami Malek, go through the same emotions where he's even feeling a little manipulated. The interactions between Crowe and Malek are hands down the best moments of the movie, but these two act as a double-edged sword for the film, where their interactions go from humble, mysterious, tense, but always leaves us wondering, pondering, and wanting more, to the point when we get scenes without these two, the movie feels bogged down, especially when we get to the courtroom scenes. This is where, given the topic at hand, this is where the movie really becomes limp. We get more emotion and action out of divorce court than we do in courtroom scenes here. There's no bite, there's no tensity. But in fairness, if we're telling this tale, this could have been historically accurate. But by showing the emotions at a more powerful level in dialogue, talking about this case is what we needed. That's kind of the film's biggest weakness overall. It's incredibly well made, but it keeps the audience at arm's length when it comes to topic, or covering too much. The movie doesn't focus on the horror and evil of the Holocaust, which is understandable to an extent that Vanderbilt wanted a movie of questioning innocent until proven guilty with public opinion. And can one have a fair trial given the magnitude of the events and a question of overall human morality? This type of movie surrounding the Holocaust, we don't see that often. But this also doesn't fully convey the magnitude of what's being judged, especially when it feels too polished, too carefully restrained. You leave impressed but not deeply shaken, unless you take in the conversations between Crowe and Malek. These are the conversations that makes us think, and it ensures that our mere thoughts shake us. We're the ones being shook because of our own questions of ourselves. It gives the audience a chance to look inward to critically think at a bigger picture. These conversations don't shout at us, they don't bring energy, or even try and make every line of dialogue memorable. but rather it's really reserved as just a conversation between two people that we have to decide, is this movie trying to just give morality versus morality in two different viewpoints, or just truly a conversation between good and evil? That is the question that hovers over us during its runtime. Now, as I stated earlier, there's a lot that stands out in this film when it comes to the filmmaking. All the elements work here when it comes to direction and creating an intimate setting to enclose us, to almost feel like we're locked in and can't escape from the conversation shared between Crow and Malik. But again, when we get outside of these conversations, the editing needed to be tighter to compensate for the pacing issues. At just under 2.5 hours, this is a movie that feels too long, but at the same time too short. The middle of the movie needed some trimming, and the editing outside of the Crow and Malik needed to tighten up to do more quick shots to really get this movie going, to feel like the interpretation of that this is a quick-paced movie, even though it's not intended to be that. But we have obvious pacing issues here due to the fact that the conversation and dialogue between Malik and Crow are fantastic. What really would have catapulted this movie if the editing was tightened up is when we take Brian Tyler's score into consideration. It's a fantastic score, but it's wasted. At times it doesn't feel like it fits when it comes to the right editing. It could have gotten a big emotional response, but the editing just makes it kind of linear and it just kind of flows through the movie. But the music score is prominent and it sticks with you during the emotional times. There's no doubt that Nuremberg is going for something towards the end of the year. We are creeping up on awards time, and Nuremberg isn't hiding the fact that it's attempting to go for the grab. In the words of Ricky Gervais to Kate Winslet, I told you to do a Holocaust movie and the awards will come. When it comes to Nuremberg, I'm not sure here, but let's see if he's right. But I will go on a limb and say that Brian Tyler's score most likely will be nominated, and rightfully so. It's a Holocaust movie that asks for the audience participation and thought. Well, we need more thought put into the pacing, but I can't skip past the performances from Crow and Malik and the fact it's effective in what it sought out to do. So I'm giving Nuremberg 3 stars. A young boy called Stitchhead, a small creature awoken by a mad professor in a castle to protect the professor's other creations from the townspeople of Grubber's Newbin. In the new animated film, Stitchhead.
Castle Grotesque. They say there's monsters in there.
You shall be my greatest creation ever!
It's not ready. We did it!
I did it! Welcome to Almost Life. Registered trademark, patents pending.
I'm Stitchhead.
Whoa! Is this a castle?
This is where you sleep.
Everyone stay calm.
Creature, these are the monsters.
Oi.
Bedtime, everyone.
Story.
The Mad Professor made you and all the other monsters here. The monsters were safe and
Never left the castle.
And that's how they live happily ever after.
Is life boring?
I'll make you famous like you never believe.
And the most brain-blowing show on earth! Take my hand. Up, up! They'll love you! Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to be terrified!
Don't be scared.
Aren't you scared?
Of course not.
No picking without paying!
Keep the change.
I have a plan. I must go down to the town and rescue Stitchhead.
So brave. Very brave.
He's toast.
Yeah, it doesn't stand a chance.
The castle is full of monsters, and monsters mean money.
They all live peacefully, and there's nothing you can do about it!
We are monsters. This is time to let out your monstrousness. Just be whoever you'd be if you weren't afraid.
It's monster time.
However good the trailer is, it's never enough.
Stitchhead is a curious little film, one that mixes gothic charm, gentle humor, and a very, very loose, heartfelt message about belonging into an animated adventure that feels both familiar and oh too safe, even for a children's film. Based on the children's book series by Gay Bays comes Stitchhead. I don't know, Stitchhead is a movie that wasn't made for me. Almost a retelling of Pinocchio that won't frighten kids in this version with its uncomfortable material with drinking, whales that devour, but rather entertaining really little kids, really little kids in a cutesy manner that skims over the simplistic messaging where even at its safe and simplistic storytelling seems to go for the cutesy, subtle humor and glosses off telling a message, even for the littlest of kids. I knew Stitchhead wasn't for me when after about the 30-minute mark, I started getting antsy, but my 4-year-old son was engulfed in it. That could be due in part with the colorful pieces and creatures that seem designed by our children's drawings. There are a lot here for little kids to really enjoy on screens to entice them in this movie, that the visuals of our characters can spark and encourage a little imagination. Stitchhead follows multiple formulas from Pinocchio to Frankenstein to make for the perfect future Halloween movies for those under 6 or 7. Stitchhead was directed by Steve Hudson, who in his third feature-length film and first animated film as a director, does a decent job here when it comes to focusing on what kids want. Bright colors, low-key characters, but something nice and shiny to look at. But when it comes to any value for outside of that, that's where we miss with this kind of film. Our character Stitchhead is voiced by Asa Butterfield, who is one of the first creations by Dr. Dislocation. Okay, that's a little bit funny in character description. Now, Dr. Dislocation created Stitchhead in one of his first experiments, who seemed to be the most put together than the rest of his creations. That after Stitchhead, we see like a shark with little legs, a head in a jar, a yak-looking creature, and a small little red fluff ball that seems just thrown in as a contrasting color. Cute to contradict the other monsters, and again, it stands out as just like a stuffed animal amongst the creations. Stitchhead runs this forbidden castle from a town that fears it, with his responsibilities getting new monsters that Dr. Dislocation creates settled in the castle. This, as an adult, not a child, made me ponder, why is Stitchhead the first creature and the most put together creation and intelligent creation, and all the other rest after him are deformed monsters that our filmmakers attempts to give heart to? Wouldn't it be the other way around of trial and error to create something leading up to a Stitchhead? It's like we're going backwards here. Why don't we have a second Stitchhead? Why do we just have creatures that our doctor just throws away in the castle? There's no explanation here, other than we see our doctor in the beginning and then we see him at the end. There's nothing in the middle here to explain this. Here we have a stitched-together boy that is running a castle and managing monsters, and everything else is like something we see our doctor create and ignore the rest of the movie. There's some missing pieces here that our story becomes lazy, and I'll get into that in just a second when it comes to the laziness of it. Our Stitchhead, of course, feels there is more outside of the castle. There's more to the world. This is where a corrupt and failing circus ringmaster Fulbert Freakfinder, voiced by Seth Ustinov, discovers Stitchhead and captures him to be an act in his traveling circus that again follows the same tropes as Pinocchio, uses him for fame and fortune, while our latest monster created by our doctor, simply named Creature, goes on a journey outside the castle to rescue Stitchface to bring him home. Even though the film has a simple and familiar premise, the problem I have is that all the elements that go into this children's film lacks any real imagination that stands out, including the musical numbers by Nick Arata, who delivers lame, uninspired, forgettable, and lazy musical numbers that almost were pointless being in the film, since the animation doesn't even support something eye-catching, and even our ears don't receive anything ear-catching. The musical numbers are forgettable before they even end, and they're not even consistent to help drive the story. They just feel thrown in to drive the runtime longer. In the runtime, we get only 2 songs, not including the movie's main song, Are You Ready for Monsters? When you only insert 2 to 3 songs in a 90-minute movie, it questions if this movie even had a proper vision of what it wanted to be. Even to the point during the climax, we get Air Supply's All Out of Love, which seems out of place that I won't give away, but again, feels like music is just inserted with no rhyme or reason. But I'm not going to complain about Air Supply being in this movie because it's a great song, so it gets points for that, but it's absolutely pointless. Anyway, but when it comes to the instrumental work, this all works, and it stands out to the theme of the movie. It is rare for me to say, take out musical numbers from a movie, especially a children's movie, but the musical numbers needed to go, with a bigger focus on the score that really does drive this movie's feel of fun and adventure. To the point I listened to the instrumental soundtrack when I got home and skipped over the vocal works. Now, the animation here looks great and does have some vision to it, and that is something that adults will have to connect with at some level, even though the characters and character design seem to appease to, again, young children. When it comes to the tone of the movie walks a careful line. It wants to be spooky enough to engage children who enjoy monsters, castles, or relatable characters at times can feel left out or lack of purpose or family. It's not so dark that it veers into loneliness, but rather keeps a vague hope of family. But parents looking for a family-friendly option will find that Stitchhead avoids that kind of aggressive cynicism or relentless pop culture references that define some contemporary animated flair. Instead, its humor relies on character quirks, visual surprises, and wordplay rooted into personality rather than parody. No fart jokes, no real cheesy stereotypical cuteness sidekick characters. That's what I would applaud this movie for. But the ending result holistically is a fun ride for kids, but a mild bore for adults. Stitchhead is too safe for its own good, with at times lacking vision of pointless and forgettable musical numbers and characters that kids in the moment, maybe under 6 or 7, will attach themselves to. But the ending result is, in the near future, Stitchhead will be a distant memory. I'm giving Stitchhead 2 stars.
And that's a cut on this week's edition of the Movie Wire. I want to thank you for listening and thank you for your support. You can also show support by following me on Instagram, Blue Sky, X, Thread, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Letterboxd at Movie Wire Show. And please don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you haven't yet checked out the Cult-Worthy Cinema Podcast and the Movie Wire's crossover show, Back to the Balcony, make sure you do. Again, the link of that show will be in the description of this episode. Until next week, do me a favor. Make sure you stay for after the credits to show the respect to those that put their blood, sweat, and tears into making a feature film and support your local movie theaters.
Thank you for bringing me to the movies.
Let the credits roll. We say farewell. Join us next time. We'll have more tales to tell.